I personally really enjoy random dice wars and all the new dice they have to offer. Except meteor dice. Screw you. But I started to wonder what if the new random dice wars dice were in random dice defense. So, I took the miserable time out of my life to come up with ideas for these dice as if they were implemented to the original random dice game. Also, take note that if the dice may, let's say, have a legendary rarity in wars, the concept I created for the defense alternative may be completely useless or beyond a legendary. I'm not really best with balancing, but this was just mainly for fun and just to have a basic idea. With that being said, let's get started. Number 1, we're starting with the rare dice of the game, which the only new rare dice they have is the cleanse dice. My idea for the cleanse dice is that it prevents adjacent dice from negative status effects like hack or royal, but however, it will not block downgrades like assassin or magician meteors or pip changing other effects like even like Leon boss. And also, cleanse dice does not apply to the cleanse itself unless a cleanse dice is adjacent to it. Honestly, this is probably going to be a very big counter to royal decks or just night boss in general. Of course, when the knight flips, the cleanse dice will be the only thing that changes, unless you don't have something protected by cleanse. But yeah, it's a buff dice, so it won't attack. Honestly, I think this could be either a unique. Yeah, that probably sounds good because it still has the flaws of being not attacking. Honestly, there is nothing that really protects your dice other than like bubble, I guess. But I mean, come on. Bubble you have to merge. This is just a buff dice, it's different kind of dice. So I guess it could count. So number 2, we're going to move on to uniques. So for my first unique that I came up with an idea with is charge dice. This is a very interesting one that I've come up with, is that buffs nearby dice's attack speed and crit for 5 seconds whenever a new wave starts, or whenever it first gets summoned. Obviously, the buff can be upgraded with the power up, and the time can also be upgraded with power up. Honestly, this is probably a better for co-op dice, because I think it should have a buff equal or maybe a tiny bit better than Lunar. But the problem is that it lasts for 5 seconds whenever a wave starts, or whenever it first gets summoned. So obviously in PvP this dice would be horrible, but co-op, since waves go by so fast, this could be somewhat more useful. The next unique I'd like to start off with is Flash Dice. This is an interesting one, and I don't know if this could be very overpowered or very horrible. For my Flash Dice idea, I thought is that it cannot attack regular enemies. However, bosses should beware as its crits, whenever it does a crit, will deal max HP damage instead of critical damage. So it drains max HP when it crits instead of just dealing an abundance of damage. Probably I guess 1% or 2%. Especially if you boost the speed with high pip or lunar. So it could be helpful, but it has to be lucky with the crits, as probably without the crit it probably does horrendously bad damage. So it's more of a luck thing. If that will be good or not, I don't know. I'm not an expert at making stats for this game. I'm just throwing out ideas for fun. The next dice we have on the list is Pop Gun Dice. For my idea for this is, when a multiple of 3 enemies is in your path, increases Pop Gun's stats, and adds full board ricochet to the dice. Honestly, this would be an interesting dice, as it has to have 3 enemies on the field, or a multiple of 3, so 3, 6, 9, 12, But other than that, it'd probably just do horrendously bad damage. I was gonna originally make this just do a ricochet, but then hitting 3 enemies, electric dice already does that, so that idea was already taken. So I had to become a little creative with this, and there it is. If it's strong, probably not. It's probably one of those other unique damage dealers that are just not used, like wave dice or something like that. But it's a fun idea. The next idea I have is for the Golem dice. For my Golem dice, when it's merged, makes you immune to monster damage for 2 seconds, which can be increased, and you only take 1 heart from mini bosses and bosses instead of the actual 2. So this is definitely a PvP dice, because if you lose a heart in co-op, you're screwed. But in PvP you have 3, so being able to tank 3 bosses instead of 2 could be helpful. Obviously you have to merge it, but yeah. Interesting dice. I haven't really seen an invulnerable or less damage heart dealing dice, because that doesn't exist, but this could be interesting. For the next unique idea, it's meteor dice. Yay. My meteor dice idea is sometimes strikes a field with a giant meteor on a random location of the path, which deals probably either big damage or percent damage or whatever. Personally, I think percent damage, so it actually would be useful instead of just like 2,000 damage. Probably percent based on remaining HP, so it's not like crazy. But yeah, it randomly strikes the field with a giant like explosion. I'd say the radius is kind of like maybe like a sand swamp. But yeah, other than that, it's just a random luck dice. If this gets added, I doubt it would ever be used. And of course, it's not going to be added, but I'm saying theoretically here. And yeah, I kind of made it this way because I hate meteor dice. It deserves to be hated here too. Next up on the list is the chaos dice. My idea for this is kind of bad. I don't know. Chaos dice, when merged, throws enemies into chaos based on dot count. So if you merge two pips, you get 4 enemies in chaos. Chaos makes enemies either move backwards or forward faster. So they move a random direction, and yeah. Chaos lasts until the enemy is destroyed and does not work on bosses. So this is a big luck chance. Obviously, power-ups will increase the chance of them going backwards and less of a chance to go forwards. But yeah, it's really just a send enemies backwards. Better than what original teleport used to do, at least. Because we all know what happened to original teleport. Now we are going to move on to the legendaries. I've come up with a very few interesting ones, I think. I don't know, probably not. Okay, but let's get started. The first dice here is the slime dice. When merged, gives slime status to a random enemy on the opponent's field. Slime status makes enemies split when killed. Slime status is less effective on bosses and mini-bosses. Basically, you could turn any enemy or boss you want into a miniature slime boss. Imagine using this on a knight. You just have them spawn 2 more knights. It would be great. Very overpowered, also has to be merged, and it only does 1 enemy, no matter the dot count. So, yeah, this could really screw with people. I'd say this one's definitely more of a legendary. Next up on our legendary list is the curse dice. Curse dice hits a random target and curses them. Cursing enemies will be insta-killed if they take 2 more attacks by any curse dice, and it does not work on bosses. This is very similar to death dice, except it's more luck-based, I guess. However, if you spam curse dice and they're just hitting everything, it should insta-kill them faster, I think, maybe, I don't know. Instead of relying on a luck chance of like the percent insta-kill, you rely on if the curse dices decide to hit the same dude 3 times. So there's that. I don't think this would be a good dice. It's probably like a rare alternative to death, honestly. But yeah, I just had to come up with an idea that at least somewhat resembles the curse dice in wars. Next up on the list is the charm dice. This is going to be very similar to chaos with a few differences, because I honestly couldn't really think of much for this one. Charm dice sometimes charms an enemy, making them move backwards and deal damage to the enemy they come in contact with based on their current HP, and charm also slows down bosses. So basically, let's say you charm an enemy with 1,000 HP and it hits someone, they will lose 1,000 health, basically. And it is based on a timer. You can increase how often it does it, and it only charms 1 person, no matter the dot count. I guess the dot count would just increase how fast it does it. But yeah, I'd say it's pretty different. As like chaos, the dudes that move backwards don't do damage, but charm does. So I guess it has some differences, but it's better than the chaos dice, in my opinion. It's probably a higher rarity, but other than that, I don't think anyone would use this. Next up on the list is the lollipop dice, which honestly I probably put the most effort into coming up with an idea with this one, because it's not really like lollipop in the original Random Dice Wars. Lollipop dice when merged gives a lollipop based on dot count, so obviously 2 pips will give 4 lollipops. Lollipops give a small permanent boost to the next dice at a summon, merge, growth, or whatever. Lollipop does not give a lollipop to the dice product of a merging lollipop unless you have a lollipop prior. Lollipop buff will be removed if the buff dice is merged or hit, unless you also still have lollipops to spare. Basically, it adds another currency that are the form of lollipops, whenever you merge them, you get this currency, and whenever you spawn dice, or they get merged, or you lose, the dice loses a layer, or I mean a pip, they'll have a lollipop buff. It just boosts like base stats like attack speed, attack, stuff like that. But if you just merge a bunch of lollipops and then you grow all your stuff, they will all have lollipop buffs. So a little bonus buff. I don't know. Maybe it could be good enough to be legendary. It is a little complicated to get, but I think it was a pretty good idea, and that's the probably idea I spent most effort on. Next dice on the list is the beam dice. I honestly couldn't think of a better idea for this, and this seems way too overpowered, but whatever. Beam dice deals little constant damage in form of a beam. However, mini bosses and bosses deal damage equal to every dice on the board as constant damage. Of course, this is obviously overpowered. This really would be good for a combo deck since you're always increasing, I think. That would be good. But other than that, yeah, it seems very overpowered as it just combines all the damage, shoots it as a beam, so it's basically doubling your damage. However, it also has single hit, and it only works on mini bosses and bosses, so little dudes, it probably won't do much. But yeah, this seems way too overpowered. I'm sorry, I can't think of any other idea for beam dice. I mean, laser already exists, so we can't really do that. Next dice on the list is commando dice. Commando dice shoots normal bullets, but however, when it's merged, the product dice will have a commando effect, which gives the product dice's bullets splash damage. I feel like this would be a legendary, because you could basically give splash damage to any dice in the game. I mean, scope already exists, which lets you hit multiple things, but I don't know, a splash damage would be cool too. Like, just basically making any dice you want into a solar dice, more or less, with the splash. I don't think it should be that big, of course, because that would be overkill. But a little splash would be nice. Like, I don't know, splash combo would be cool. Other than that, yeah, this dice, I don't know. I couldn't think of a better idea. I just thought because in wars, when you merge the commando, it becomes a splash damage dude. Try to keep it a little simulator. And finally, berserk dice. This is a pretty simple one in my opinion, but I think it would be actually pretty useful in certain, probably like crew battle. So the berserk dice is a buff dice that gives adjacent dice the berserker status. So when there's 15 or more enemies, they go insanely fast, they shoot faster, they have the splash and stuff. Yeah, I thought that was a good idea for some reason. It looks fun, but is it overpowered? Depends on the dice, I guess. But yeah, that's honestly all I could think of because like original berserk dice is just go out there and die, and then get angry when you die. So I mean, I couldn't really implement that to random dice defense well. So yeah, there's that. Anyways, that's all the dice ideas I have for all the current new dice in the game that aren't from defense originally. And yeah, I gotta say, it was pretty fun to make them. Obviously, are they overpowered or some way too underpowered? Yes, I would agree. If you guys have better ideas, let me know. And yeah, I might remake this video if it actually does well. And obviously, down the line when more dice get released. Because this game is what, like a few months old? I don't even think it's a year old yet. Well, I mean, Wars, of course, not original. Well, other than that, join the Discord. It will be in the description. And yeah, goodbye. I'm not good at outros.